What's happening, everyone? This is Jarrett Lipman. I'm the band director at Claudia Taylor, Lady Bird Johnson High School in San Antonio. So excited to be here today and share a little bit about what we do with Slack and how it's made a huge impact on our students in the band program.
Thank you for joining us, man. I appreciate it. This has actually been like a year in the making, right?
Absolutely.
We had conversations about this last year, and then just for one reason or another couldn't make it happen, but here we are. So
figured it out.
Before we do anything, we got to take our inaugural bite. We've got, I want to say it's 46th Street Pizza here in San Antonio. They are not sponsoring this episode, but if you are watching 46th Street and you need a sponsor and want some free not free promotion, but promotion, then by all means check this out. All right, let's do this.
Yep, all right. We're in. I said I'm a pizza junkie growing up in New Jersey, so anytime I'm around it, it's great.
Even bad pizza?
Even bad pizza is
it's
good pizza.
It's still pizza.
It's great.
Yeah. So you did, when you introduced yourself, you talked a little bit about being the band director, but give us your educational background. What have you done in education, starting from the beginning?
Sure. I grew up in central New Jersey and went to school at Rutgers University, and I got my degree in music performance and music education, and I moved pretty much right out of college to San Antonio. I was a member of the first staff at Lady Bird Johnson High School, so I've been teaching there for 15 years. It's my whole career, and it's just been such a great place to grow up and learn how to practice my craft. And I travel around a lot now to other programs and other schools, kind of sharing the things that I've learned and the way that we do stuff. And Johnson's just been such an incredible place to teach music for most of my life.
That's crazy. So your entire education
has been in one place.
It's been in one place.
Yes, sir.
Wow. Interesting. Now, when did you decide, I think I want to be a band director?
I knew that I wanted to teach music early on in my life, and it was connected to my grandfather. He was a drum major of the Rutgers Marching Band, and although he was working in Cranberries for most of his life, he also did music on the side. And so I would say probably as early as fourth grade, I developed a great relationship with my elementary band director, and I knew I wanted to be just like him when I got older, and that passion went through high school. I thought about doing some other things. I for a period with my family's background in cranberry farming, maybe a little bit in landscape architecture, or thinking I might even at some point want to be a Broadway musical director. So there were some rabbit holes that I went down before I settled on the time at Johnson, but I know that I made the right decision.
I was going to ask you about Cranberries. I didn't know you were talking about Cranberries, the musical group, but no.
Actually, cranberry farming. Yeah, my family, they grew cranberries for ocean spray for most of my life and almost all of my dad's and my grandfather's. Cranberries grow in one of 5 states. In New Jersey is one of those 5. New Jersey, Massachusetts, Wisconsin, and then Washington State and Oregon are on the West Coast. And it's you notice they're all in that similar area in the country on the north side where the soil is perfect and the temperatures are perfect, and it's pretty cool.
I had no idea.
Yep.
It's crazy. I woke up and one of the first things I did this morning was make cranberry sauce for tomorrow.
There you go. It's that time of year. Everybody's all about it.
Yeah, that's right. A good Thanksgiving can't be a good Thanksgiving without some good cranberry sauce.
And it's better when it's ocean spray. Or homemade, I'll take it. But
yeah, that's right. That's right. So we're here to talk about Slack, specifically Slack for extracurricular activities, especially with the band. Yeah. I'm going to call it the band. Now, why did you choose Slack as your communication tool? Because primarily it's texting, it's group text, but that you can't do that with a band of your size,
sure,
of Lady Bird Johnson. So why did you choose Slack?
The first tool that we used was GroupMe, and I felt like we had used that some at the Cadets where I teach drum corps in the summer. I had taught, and it really made a difference in, rather than using group text threads where people were on different phones and there was a limit to what you could send, we saw a huge boost in our ability to communicate as a staff and with our students when we were using GroupMe. The problem with GroupMe for us at the time with Cadets and then with Boston, it was pretty limited in that it was a communication tool. It brought, and it's evolved. I love it. The kids still use it for smaller groups. But Slack, I learned about when I got to the Boston Crusaders in 2017, and it was the first year they were using this tool, and they wanted to use the different channels for schedules and for meals and for uniforms. And I was blown away by how all of the same people could be in a workspace but have different channels. And rather than, if I'm on a group me chat where I post basically the same thing to everybody in a general chat, Slack organized things. And then when you really dug in and you could see all the different calendar options and the file sharing, I was pretty impressed with what it could do. So I would say 2018 was probably the first exposure to where it's like, man, this thing is pretty fresh.
Yeah. So I got on the Slack, I guess, bandwagon back in 2000. I think it was 2015, 2014. I'm going to go on a little rant, so feel free to dig in right now. So in our department back in Arizona, a big shout out to everyone in that instructional technology department in Florence, Arizona, Nick Tracus, Jason, Amato, the whole group. One of us found it, and we decided, what if we try this out for a week? Forget email. We'll check email only for emails from teachers and things like that. But as far as communication within our department, let's try Slack for a week. And we were really impressed. The Google file integration, all that stuff. And this is not a sponsored episode by Slack. However, if you're watching Slack, any representatives from Slack out there and you want to jump in on this, by all means, shoot me a DM or an email. But we were really impressed. And I had never thought about it being used in a setting like for a band or an extracurricular activity, but it's elevator speech. In a nutshell, it is basically a communication piece between multiple parties that's organized, like you said, with channels. So you can have discussions specific to one group of people or departments or individuals. And there's also the direct message feature that's available in most platforms in that. So it's kind of like an all-in-one. And as of right now, the one that we're using is free 99, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there are some limitations. What are some things that really just kind of bug you about what Slack, or maybe things that we could maybe throw in their direction? Like, hey, it'd be really great if you could integrate this.
I think I don't have a lot of complaints about it. I feel like it's I won't say it's perfect, but for what we need it for, there's some issues with the platform that is free, where like I like that we can control who can post on certain groups, and we can limit so that things don't get cluttered. And you can only do that on a few of the channels with the free feature. I don't love that we can't archive messages for long periods of time. Like as you post things onto Slack, if you wanted to go back 6 to 8 months, the free feature doesn't allow that to happen. And so I think if there was like a middle ground, like an educational pricing, because that's when we've done the research on adding onto the premium subscription, it's pretty expensive, and it's a pretty big investment. And so there's a huge jump between the free and the paid. Yeah. And if there was some kind of educational middle ground, I think that would be great. But I mean, for what Slack does as far as the tool, we're very happy with it.
Yeah, and as a parent, we're very happy with it as well. I will say, in the midst of the band season, mm-hmm. I check it so often, it kind of overwhelms me. Yeah. So my next question to you is, how, as a director, and you've got, have you checked how many active participants were on Slack this season?
So we're somewhere between 650 and 800 right now. So it's because you figure there's 300 kids in band, and if each of them adds a parent, gets you to 600. And if they add 2 parents or a family member, then it starts to push closer to 9 or 1,000. Before we rolled over to the new group, we were almost 2,000 people on the Slack, and that one had been over 5 years. And we finally went, you know what, we need to start to do a new group, a new workspace each year. So
kind of like a Google Classroom.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And what was great is when we had those alumni that were on there 3 or 4 years, they loved to be able to stay in touch with the announcements. So we hear from a lot of our alumni parents and families that now that Slack group is shut down, they don't know where to get their information. Oh, man. So it was the right time, but it's pushed us to have to figure out some different ways to keep our alumni engaged without them being on Slack.
Okay, maybe like an alumni representative to be on there, mm-hmm. and then share that information out. Exactly. All right, so how do you keep up?
Delegate. I with the number of channels and the number of messages, I learned early on in using Slack that I really only address things that come to the band parent specific questions, or I address things that come out on the general. But for the most part, we ask our board members, our committee chairs, our other band directors to tackle questions as they come up. And what I love the last year or two, I'm always amazed if a parent or a kid answers a question. The kids are so wonderful about responding themselves. They don't even wait anymore. And so I don't feel like I have to get to all of the questions. The community kind of helps itself and everybody takes care. And so that, I mean, it really reduces stress on my plate because I see less emails coming into my box asking the same 10 questions because people now ask them in a public space. And before I even get to answer it, sometimes someone else has already solved the problem. So I feel like it's just, it has reduced stress in my life versus the old days of every morning there were the 50 emails that would ask the same questions, and I'm grateful for that.
And the fact that person A who emailed you can't see that person B emailed you the same thing, whereas in Slack, it's all there. And then I like doing searches for keywords, like for example, BOA. For those of you who don't know what that means, that's Bands of America. You know, when that competition came around, we weren't sure if we bought tickets or not because we have bought so many damn tickets, man.
No, you weren't kidding. You couldn't tell what it was by that point.
Yeah, we didn't know which email is it attached to. Did we buy meals, all that stuff? So I like the fact that we could do the keyword search. So that's a really, really cool feature as well. So I'm glad that you guys finally decided, you know what, let's do a new one every year because that, I can't imagine, 5 years.
Yeah, it was a lot of people in one space for sure.
Wow. And I held that, I assisted with that parent, kind of like a parent crash course at the beginning of the year.
Correct.
Of the band season.
Yep.
Gosh, I wish we could do that. Well, I hope that we can continue that because every year there's that one band, not one. No, I'm going to retract that statement. There's always band parents who are late to the show, late to the party.
That is correct.
If you turn off your notifications for a day or two, so much has gone on. It's crazy. So yeah, that's definitely something to think about. Now, do you set like do not disturb hours?
So we have do not disturb hours for our Slack that go from 10 to 6, but we don't have it set to restrict the conversation. So if there's an emergency, I especially found during COVID that kind of the normal MO of how a COVID test when we were operating, a student would leave if they were showing symptoms, and that would happen anywhere between 1 and 6. And by that point, child's parent takes them to an urgent care, and that usually gets in 7 to 9 p.m. And the test results would ping back usually around 1 in the morning. And so I would get a result from a student. I was checking my phone a lot more than in the night because I would panic that we would get a kid maybe that was sick, and then we would have to jump into quarantine stuff before that next 10 kids showed up to school the next day. So I felt like, at that time during COVID, especially having the all night Slack option was a good thing. Now that we've kind of balanced back a little bit, we try to limit it so that the kids and the parents are not sending messages out between that 10 and 6 o'clock to be respectful of everybody.
Yeah. Except after a competition, because then it doesn't stop.
No, there's a lot of energy. I think everybody kind of understands it. We're all up till 3 a.m. on contest days.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm going to circle back because, and feel free to take a bite. What did you get? Pesto?
I did
you got the pesto pizza? Okay, so I got meat lovers, but I'm definitely hitting up that pesto after. New Jersey. I had a conversation with 3 podcasters about a year and a half ago, and it was virtual. And they were on my show. They also host a podcast, but they were on my show virtually. And we chose a specific food from Jersey. I actually said, hey, why don't we do this? And we'll eat virtually kind of thing.
Perfect. Now,
for you, I want you to answer this question. Is it Taylor ham? Or is it pork roll?
Pork roll. Absolutely pork roll. I mean, I don't get into the argument about it because there's nothing to argue. It's pork roll.
All right. So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, just Google it. That was my first time having it. I didn't know they sold it at H-E-B. Mm-hmm. So
you can get it down here.
Got it. I sliced it up. We cooked it up in the morning and did, I think, the typical pork roll, egg and cheese.
Absolutely.
On a bagel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everything bagel is that's where you really get it all.
Yeah,
all the flavors.
Yeah. I was a little afraid because that string, that like mesh pouch that it comes in, I think I might have got a couple threads in the pork roll. But check that out, ladies and gentlemen. Google it. It's pretty good. It's an experience for sure. It's definitely an
experience. Once you try it, you'll never go back.
Yeah. And now, with that being said, that's total sidetrack. But let's talk about band because I definitely want to talk about this. 300 band members this year?
Yes, we're just under 300. We were, before the pandemic, we were closer to 350, 360, and we've dipped just a little bit. But it's still it's a huge organization when you think about how many students and parents are involved in it.
Yeah. Now, if you can recall, a ballpark figure, out of the 14 or 15 years, would you say?
15.
15. What was the largest band size that you had?
I think the largest was 360, and that was in 2018. We had been hit with a huge incoming class, and our retention rates were high because the band had been successful. We were traveling to Grand Nationals at that time, so we saw a lot of enthusiasm and energy in that 2016-17 time frame. And then by the time we hit the fall of 18, I just remember adding extra buses. Everything was taking, longer than it had, because moving a group that big took a lot longer than moving a group that was a little bit smaller. So it was it's pretty wild.
How do you, and I've thought about this, I've asked this to myself, and my wife and I have had this conversation as well. Like, how you, Jarrett Lipman, as a band director, do you turn band off at all during the marching season? Or is it literally the first thing you think about when you wake up? And is it the last thing you think about before you go to bed?
Absolutely. I think it's like any family business or any small business owner experiences. It's really hard when you own your own business to ever turn off. And I think that, I work for the Northeast ISD. I work for Johnson High School. That's the work part of my job. The Johnson Band is every bit my baby, like anybody else's, small business. And so I'm thinking constantly about the students, their families, their needs, and when we're in contest season, especially, it's how are we going to be better? So I think there are times where I force myself to turn off when I can tell I'm getting tired, but for the most part, that's a part of, I think, any great organization is the leadership is going to be completely inundated and immersed with whatever it is that they're doing.
Yeah. Makes sense. I never really thought about it like a small business owner, but you can't turn that off.
No,
it's like somebody telling you, somebody telling you, hey, don't think of a horse. Whatever you do, don't think of a horse.
And all you're thinking about is the horse.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Exactly. Now, I have to ask, what is next for Jarrett Lipman?
I've spent the last couple of years getting my master's in public administration and urban planning. I've always been really interested in public service and possibly serving in elected office. And so I have some exciting announcements coming up in the next couple of weeks. But I'm taking a break from full-time teaching to pursue both consulting and education. Basically, I said earlier, traveling to other schools where maybe they don't have the resources that Johnson does, and they struggle with high turnover rates in their programs. So I'm really passionate about trying to help students and in all different backgrounds be able to have the same kind of experience that our kids at Johnson have. And I think that's hard to do when there's turnover, there's lack of resources. So the consulting firm I work for, PBSL, it specializes in Title I schools and in setting up mentoring and instructional coaching relationships with the band programs there so that I can go out and I can help. And so the combination of continuing to do the consulting and working at these schools and then I'm going to make a run for elected office here soon. It's going to be a busy 2023.
And that you can't turn off.
Not turning that one off, but it's been good practice. I feel like all that I've learned being in the program at Johnson, and hopefully we'll continue to be working with them, just in a different capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. There was one other Slack question I had for you, and I've asked myself this. I thought about it. When you send those really long messages, when you've got whether it be preparing for a competition or a message to parents or what have you, do you do that on the computer or do you do that on the phone?
Yes.
Yes,
I do. It's both. I mean, there are messages that I will type up or I'll speak or I'll dictate into the phone and then copy and paste it right in. But a lot of the messages I'll type on my computer and then use on the desktop app, which is what I love that Slack has the accessibility on both. The desktop app is, I think, as valuable a resource because it's your direct message program, and all day long, I'm able to check that. I'm able to keep, an eye on what's going on in the program. And then when we go out to rehearsal, if something happens with the weather, I can immediately get a message out to everybody about weather alerts. And it really has changed all of what we do and how we communicate. And there are times I think about not sending out emails anymore and just going through Slack, but I feel like we kind of do that for the most part. Maybe the Sunday and the Wednesday we do an email, but almost everything else is now we just run it through Slack. Yeah.
I've thought about that because when I have to type lengthy things, I try not to do it on the phone. I can't. Yeah. I have to do it on a desktop.
I understand.
Yeah, or on a Google Doc and then copy and paste or what have you. Yeah, absolutely. This is not on the list of questions that I sent you, but I have, and feel free to decline. I'm not going to get personal in any way, shape, or form. But what do you have what is the most crazy experience that you've had in band? Like an experience and a good one, a good experience that you can talk about, that maybe viewers or listeners would enjoy hearing about a band event, a certain moment or what have you. I don't know. Maybe it was the 2020 UIL. I don't know. But what is something that just flipped the switch in you and you were like, holy cow, this...
One of probably the craziest moments was 2016. It was after our finals, and we were coming off the field. We had a pretty hectic night. We drew first to perform in finals that night, and we had a pretty late time to perform in the semis. And so our turnaround time, when we found out we made finals to when we had to get the kids ready, this is at Grand Nationals, it's at Lucas Oil. There's a lot of distance between the performance venue and where the kids were eating dinner. And so we learned on pretty short notice that we were going to perform first out of the 12 with a very limited time to get everybody dressed, get everybody fed, get everybody ready. So the kids stepped up. They did great. And I came off the field that night. I think it was a combination of just total stress and being so relieved that they had been so great. So I normally group up and talk to the kids, and when they started to come out of the tunnel at Lucas Oil, I started to cry, and it was ugly cry. I don't normally ugly cry with them. And I think it was just, like I said, it was this mix of emotions. And then the kids started to see me cry, and so they started to ugly cry. And I think if anybody had been watching as one child started to come, it was an unbelievable emotional outburst. Kids were crying, they were hugging, sections were crying, and it was a mix of all these emotions. And I just think once everybody got hysterical, I started to watch the instructors and the other teachers were losing it. And it's never been like that again. Even after our biggest moments in our nights, there are nights where we get emotional and I see kids cry, but that was such a special night. Those kids were so committed and so passionate, as they always are. But I think just the circumstances of what, the 2 hours leading up to the performance had been, then the performance, and then coming off. Interestingly enough, that the group that came back that next season, they won 3 regionals and some of the highest scores, some of the best performances we've had in 2017. And I look back on that night at finals the season prior, and the emotion that those kids were feeling. When you see a team that wins the Super Bowl or they win a state championship, there's going to be that emotion, but it's that celebration. When you take 300 teenagers and their teachers and their coaches and their parents, and everybody is that emotional, it's pretty wild. I can only think if the people that were watching us that night, what was going through their mind. They couldn't figure out if somebody had died or if we had just won the whole thing. I mean, you don't really know, but it made a huge impression on me, and I never forgot it.
2016, Indianapolis.
Yep.
It was pretty damn cold over there too, right?
It was a cold night.
Wow. That's crazy. Now, how can people connect with you on social media?
You can look me up at Jarrett Lipman on Twitter and on Instagram and on all of that. You can also follow the band at our band website, johnsonjaguarband.org. You can look at our CTJ Band Media Instagram, our Facebook. I feel like the last couple years we've done a really good job as an organization of boosting, and I try to do that as a professional on my own social media, so that it's we're totally connected. We love to brag and share about what our kids do, and we're very proud of them.
Yeah. And for those of you watching and listening, if you want to connect with the CTJ Band, Mr. Lipman as well, all that stuff is going to be in the show notes. All the links will be in there. That way you guys can check them out, give them a follow, and also help support. So with that being said, man, what is a message that you want to tell all band members, past and present? What is it that you want them to walk away with being a band member or an ex-band member?
I want them to feel ready to tackle anything in their world, that they know that whether it's through hard work, persistence, perseverance, I mean, you name it, that whenever they leave our band program, they're going to be equipped to face life, and they're not going to be afraid of anything. And I think that for me, the work ethic is a huge part of it, but also understanding how to deal with disappointments, how to deal with success, and how to build upon success and focus on continued improvement. I hope that they find that their time in band prepares them well for whatever they're going to do after they graduate from Johnson High School.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it from Mr. Lipman himself. I'm going to give you a round of applause here for everything that you do, everything you've done with the band. I am speaking to you as a parent. As a parent, we want to personally thank you for everything that you do for our students, our band students. We see all the benefits here at the house, in our home, from what the band has done to our two kids and done for them. You can't participate in an extracurricular activity without having your grades up. You can't be a representative of the band without having the right behaviors, both on and off the field and in the classroom and out of the classroom. So we want to thank you for everything that you do, everything that you've done, everything that you've accomplished, everything you haven't accomplished yet, but you will in the near future. We want you to know that we are here to support you, as you have supported all our band members in the past 15 years. So with that being said, man, I want to tip my hat to you for everything that you contribute to our educational space, everything that you do for our children, because our children need it, especially now more than ever. I've said this before. I wrote a blog post about this a while back, that I feel like our kids are living a 9/11 every other day with all these mass shootings and things like that. Our kids are worrying about things that they shouldn't have to worry about. And things like this band, the communication, all the positivity on Slack, all that only helps and propels our students forward to deal with anything like you said. So with that being said, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.